Here at INSOM, I'm very pleased to welcome you to Session 7 in our INSOM 2019 Fall Webinar Series. This presentation is entitled 20 Plus Declarative APEX Settings You Didn't Know or Forgot Existed. My name is Mark Ruel from the INSOM Marketing Team, and I'll be your moderator. Our series producer is Marc-André Brassard. Now, as we begin, please note that your mics are muted, and we'll be taking questions in the question panel, and you can also chat in the chat panel. And we'll basically be taking all the questions at the end of the presentation, but that doesn't stop you from writing your questions into the question panel, so as you not forget them, and that we address them all at the end of the presentation. Our presenter today is Senior APEX Consultant Jeff Eberhard. Mr. Eberhard is a highly skilled Oracle Applications Express developer with 15 years of experience creating and managing Oracle-related applications and databases. He is a regular contributor to the Oracle APEX OTN Forum, as well as a frequent presenter at the Utah Oracle User Group, their training days, the Utah Oracle User Group training days. Jeff is also occasionally blogs about his APEX discoveries. And now we'll begin the presentation. So I will hand the webinar over to our presenter. Jeff, we're ready when you are.
All right, thank you, Mark. I hope everyone's having a great day. Today, we just have a simple agenda. First, a very brief intro, and then we'll dive into exploring declarative features of APEX, and then with a couple application builder tips. I work for INSOM, and this webinar is presented by INSOM. INSOM is a proud Canadian-born company which provides APEX-related services worldwide. We do custom development, coaching, training, and maintenance of existing APEX applications. With over 90 full-time employees worldwide, we're ready to help you meet your APEX objectives, and please contact us for any of your APEX needs. So in the beginning, APEX, even when it was known as HTMLDB, has been described as a tool to declaratively build data-centric web applications. Today, I'm going to share a few things that makes APEX what APEX is, that is, its declarative ability to create components and functionality. And through the years, each new version of APEX has given us additional declarative features. And as more and more declarative features are added, there's more for us, at least for me, there's more for us to forget or never pick up in the first place. So hopefully we can share a few of these things today. So as a throwback to my C++ days, we'll just start at numbering number 0 with discussing packaged applications. APEX includes an increasing number of packaged applications that allow developers to install and run applications that will help the developer learn about the type of applications that are possible and how specific types of pages can be constructed. The app gallery in the application builder shows the different types of packaged applications. There are productivity and sample packaged applications. Let me log into my workspace. I'm sorry, I thought that was ready to go. Here we go. The productivity type packaged applications are applications built to address the specific business need, and then we have the sample applications which contain pages and code snippets of various APEX features. I get probably the primary difference between a sample and a productivity application is the level of support. When sample applications are installed, they are unlocked and fully editable by the developer to be able to look at it and explore. I'm going to install the sample reporting application here, as we'll refer to it later in the presentation. And as that's installed, I'll talk about productivity applications. When they're installed, they're locked, which makes them so they can't be edited by the developer. And in the locked mode, that makes them eligible for future upgrades or support by Oracle support. Even though they're locked, even though the productivity packaged apps are locked, They can be unlocked, so you can customize them as you wish, but once you do that, you become ineligible for any upgrades to the application or support by Oracle support. So I'm also going to install the sample database application. I just take the defaults, click a few buttons, and it's added these applications to our workspace. Let's continue and talk about application features. APEX gives us application level features that can be added declaratively. These features can be added and chosen when we create a new application. So I'm going to create a new application, and we see from the wizard, I'm going to give a name to my application, and then down in the features, we see all the features that can be added. The About page. This feature will add an About page to our application, which we can use to give a description of our application and other information about our application. Access control will add the tables, authorizations, and pages to add role-based authorizations to our application. Activity reporting will add various reports related to the user activity for the application. Configuration options gives us a page that allows an administrator of our application to enable or disable specific functionality in this application. Feedback adds pages and a feedback link to the navigation bar that allows the end user to submit feedback. And then the theme style selection. This feature allows the administrator to select a default color scheme or theme style for the application. Also, if the administrator enables it, a customized button will be available to the end user to allow the end user to choose their own theme style. So we can enable our features and then just create our application. So looking at our application in the application builder, we see that by just a few simple clicks that we've already created an 18-page application in just a few minutes. Now, what if we didn't choose one of those features when we created the application? No problem. We can just choose the Create Page wizard and then change the page type to be a feature. There's an additional feature in here called email reporting that will give us various reports related to emails queued and sent from this application. I'm going to add the feedback one that I forgot to add when I created it. And since I already have an administration page, I can use an existing one. And then it's going to add any of the feedback related regions and items to our administration page that we already have. So let's see. So now we've got a 22-page application. So we talked about all these different features that we've declaratively added to our application or included in it. So now I've talked about 8 features already, so we're almost halfway done. Actually, we'll just call this our first feature or our first topic. All right. In the application builder, when we list the applications in icon view, we can see that there's an icon set for the application. In this case, we took one of the default icons when the application was created. We can change that icon by editing the application definition. In the application definition, here we have an icon file name, and we can see the default, it had added this app icon.svg file. And by clicking the help file, we can get some details of what we need to provide to replace this image. It's going to be a 64 by 64 pixel image that we're going to upload into our application images at the root level. So let's go do this quickly. I'll go into the shared components, the static application files. I can see there's already 2 files here that were included when this application was created for us. I've branded my application here with my own images that I want to use, and I'm going to upload them at this time. And I see that I've uploaded my files here. I see this kitty.svg. If I go back to my application definition, I can change the file name here to be the one I want to use. And so now in the application builder, I'll see my application has an image associated that relates to the application. Now I've changed the icon image in the application builder, but when I run the application, I can still see by the default page that I created that it's still using my default image that I had selected when I created the image. Editing the page and looking at the region options, I can see that the icon is set to app icon. App icons actually class defined in that app icons.css file that we saw that was placed in our application images location. And if we drill into our, if we go into our application definition, into our user interface and into our desktop user interface, we find that this CSS file was included on every page. And by simply, what I've done is I've taken that app icon.css file, I edited it and changed some references to the image and the color, resaved it, and earlier I uploaded the app images, and now I can just change our reference here to be the CSS file that I want loaded on every page. And so now when I run my application, that class sets that background image and background color for us to see this image in here. Now, most often, if you're working on branding your application with an image, you also want it's also desirable to have the icon show in your browser tab windows. Here I see the icon is a default Apex one. Now this icon in the browser tab is called the fave icon. And there's a field in the user interface panel of the application definition where we can enter the code to reference our uploaded files. And if you need help remembering what code we need to put in there, we can reference the help inside the builder to give us the code snippet that we need to provide here. So let me forward and grab this code snippet that I have for my images, and we'll place it here, apply our changes, run the page, and now in my browser tab, I have the fave icon that I want displayed with this application.
Jeff, you still there?
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry about that. Thought we lost you a second.
What's the last thing I was talking about? I'm sorry.
The favicon.
Did we finish that?
Yeah.
Okay. And now we're going to talk about the build options. Build options can be used to enable and disable certain components or functionality in our application. When we chose to add the built-in features when we create our application, a build option was generated for each of those features. And so that's a way for us to include or easily flag those features as included or excluded from our application. You can apply build options to most components such as pages, regions, items, validations, processes, etc. in our application. For me, in most of my applications, I like to create an obsolete or dev hold, or I've seen it as commented out build feature. And let's run through a quick scenario of why I do this. So on my main page of my application, I'm going to create a couple regions here. I'm going to have a region with old content, a region with new content. And imagine in this region here, I won't make this complex, but imagine we had a complex PL SQL expression here. Let me save that. I run the page, I should see both my regions here, that's good. Now what can happen is one day I might get an email from someone that's in charge of this application, and they'll say, hey, I don't want the old content to be shown on the page anymore. Can you take that away from us? So what I'm gonna do is I should have created this build option. We'll just create a build option of dev hold or obsolete. We set the status exclude, and we want to exclude it when we export our application. So I get that message saying, hey, remove that content. I could go here, I could delete it from the page, or often developers like to change the conditional setting to never. But once I do that, I lose whatever my conditional settings were before. So I like to set my build option to this dev hold, which is excluded from my application. That way, when I get the call tomorrow to say, hey, I really want that content still, all I have to do is remove that build option. And then I've got that feature or content back again. So that's build options. Now Apex even has a way for us to declare our love or our passion for Apex. It's a declarative setting they've given us to add the built with the Apex footer to our pages. So back again to our application definition. In our user face details, we have an option to include the footer to our page. Apply it, and now every page of our application, if we scroll down to the footer, we see that we have this built with heart using Oracle Apex, and the neat feature is when you hover over the heart, it starts beating. So something fun. So some of the power of Apex is contained in the many declarative page item types that we have. Without typing or knowing a single line of HTML code, we can have many different data elements added to our page. Declaratively, we can add to our page a checkbox, a date picker, all these page items, even the lowly text field. Most of these items are self-explanatory, or we can use the provided help in the Oracle Apex Builder to help us know how to configure or use them. And so if I go through all these, I see, okay, now I've got up to my 20 features, but it looks like we have a lot of time, so we'll just go over a couple lesser used ones or known. First one, I'm going to add a page item. It's the color picker page item, and it's pretty self-explanatory. I add the color picker item to the page, and this gives us a text box with an icon where the user clicks on that. It brings up a color palette where the user can select a color and apply it to the field. It returns, let me get something different than black. There's a blue color. It returns the hexadecimal code, color code, HTML code for that color. The user, they could even type in their own code if they knew what their number of a color is. Or they could even use HTML known color names. Another one we're going to demo is the list manager item. Not last, list. There we go. It uses an LOV. We'll just take some default values just to show it. And here we see that it gives us a pop-up LOV with our LOV values that we can select and add to a list. And once they're added there, we can click and the user can remove them from the list. And another nice little one that isn't used too often is the percent graph. For the percent graph here, we're going to give it a default value. Let's say 74. And the percent graph shows a visual representation of a value between 0 and 100. So here I see the graphical representation of 74. The page item is customizable to change the background and the bar color. And then the last one additional item I like to use sometimes when I have a flag value for a column is this switch item. Switch gives us a flip toggle switch, and it's normally used for on-off or yes-no combinations, but it can be customized between two different labels and values. So I can have my on value, I can still keep it as on, define it as on, but I can say on Mars, or the off value, and if we're not on Mars, we're on Earth. So now on our page, we'll see two different options for this item. We will either have on Mars selected or on Earth. But in the background, when the page gets submitted, it's going to submit the values of on or off, or whatever we had defined in those custom settings. Page item subtypes. For our text field items, there are some subtypes that can be set. There's text, email, phone number, and URL. And I'm going to set a default for here, this one too. So So if I run this page and I've set that subtype, if I go inspect the element, I can see it's added this attribute, type equals tell. What this is it's a HTML5 text subtype. For some devices that have on-screen keyboard functionality, like your mobile devices, the HTML5 text subtypes enables those devices to show an optimized layout keyboard for easier data input. For like a telephone number, it's going to bring up a numeric pad. For an email type of field, it's going to bring up a keyboard layout that has like your @ signs and common domain suffixes. And the other neat thing about the subtype feature here is if our item's going to be displayed as read-only, so I'm going to make this item read-only always, it's going to create an appropriate link for the value of that item. So when I hover over this, when we look in the lower left, I can see that it's a telephone link because I've got the item defined as a subtype of phone number. All right. Another declarative option of page items is enabling the quick picks features. The quick picks feature, when it's enabled, will provide the user with up to 10 hyperlinks that when clicked will set the item to a predefined value. So for my color picker here, I can have some predefined links here, and I'm just going to take some colors. And so instead of having the user click on the icon to open the palette, if these are going to be some common colors, they can just click on the quick pink and it's going to set the value of my item to whatever I've defined in my quick picks. Another common scenario of using quick picks is for like a select list when you have a large LOV that has many values, but you know there's going to be some common values that users will be picking. You can add some quick picks to those LOVs so they don't always have to click the LOV and search through the long list of LOV values. Okay. Dynamic actions. Around the year 2010, I think it was, APEX 4 came out. It was released and included a new feature called dynamic actions. Previous to this version, if you wanted any sort of client-side functionality, you need to know JavaScript and code it yourself. With APEX 4 dynamic actions, they provide a declarative way for the APEX developer to provide client-side functionality without needing to know any JavaScript. Now, we could have a whole webinar on the basics of the dynamic actions, and we actually had one last week, and we could also probably have another whole webinar on getting into more of the complex or more details of dynamic actions. For today, I'm just going to go through a scenario that just shows a couple dynamic actions. So to do that, I'm going to create a button. Put a button on my page. And then I'm going to create dynamic action. So when my button's clicked, I'm going to have some declarative actions done. Now, a common request that I get is when the user clicks a button, they want the button to be disabled. So we can do that when we click the button. We can disable the button. We don't want to disable it when we load the page, so we'll change that. And so now when I run the page after I save it, I've got my button. When I click it, it's disabled. It doesn't do anything because we've told it the action of the button is going to be defined by the dynamic action. And the only thing we've told the dynamic action to do right now is to disable the button. So what we want to do after we disable it, we'll want to submit our page. And in the request, we can have it be our button name. And a feature of the submit page action is the option to show processing, and this is really nice. This will cause the whole page to be faded and a spinning icon to be shown as the page is being submitted and processed. And this is really helpful to give the user feedback on, hey, something's happening to my page. Since I don't have a lot of processing, we don't see it for too long when I submit this page. All right. Now I'm going to go over to the reporting sample application. I'm going to run it. Let me log in. So now let's talk about just a couple declarative features that we have in regards to reports in APEX. In our report column definitions, we have the option to specify which format we want our numbers and dates to appear as. So I have some date columns here. The format mask here, we can set the format mask using the same, if we're familiar with PL SQL and SQL, we use the same format that we use when we use our toChar function. In APEX, we have an additional since format mask that we can use. There's a since, and then there's a abbreviated version of since, which is named since short. What this does is it sets the format to show the date as a relative date in words for the column's date value. So in the past, it will give us a number with the words of weeks, hours, days, and ago. And if it's in the future, it'll change the text to be from now. All right, so since we're on the subject of our date format here, suppose you've built your application, you released it to the users, and then they come back and say, hey, we don't like this format of the date. It's not intuitive to us, and in our normal day-to-day lives, we're used to seeing it in a different format. So you don't have to go through every page in your application and look for the date items or date columns and change that format mask. There's an application level wide setting that we can use. So in our application properties under globalization, we can apply the application date format and application-wide date time format and timestamp format. So setting this, we'll set the default format mask for our dates in our whole application. Now also in those the globalization settings, we have a field here called character value comparison to demonstrate what this can be used for. Let me we see I've listed my task here. I've listed this list sorted by the task, And if I went and edited this task and changed the task name, and if I make the first word uppercase, if we use the default Oracle sorting, our uppercase characters are going to appear before our lowercase. So as a human reading this, we would come and say, hey, this is out of order. Why isn't this complete questionnaire down here with the complete plan? Why is it coming up on top? That's because of the default sorting. Now we can, if we go back to this character value comparison, we can change this to say binary IC. And what this setting does is it's used to set the NLS sort database session parameter. The NLS sort database session parameter will be used in the execution of SQL queries and various APEX components such as classic reports, interactive reports, and list view regions. And if I did this right, not IC, I'm dyslexic, it's CI, case insensitive. So now when I run this, I see it sorted by ignoring the case and the way I would expect it to be sorted. So let me get to my slides here. Okay, we discussed that, Okay. Now, a nice thing about the packaged applications is you run them, then you see something, and then you want to figure out how they did something. That was the case when I came across this. When I came across the navigation menu badge, I looked at this and I discovered when I looked at the I saw that badge with that number in it, and I'm like, how did they do that? Well, I came and found out in the navigation menu, in the list, in the name of the menu item, they've got the label, and then in the square brackets, they have a reference to an application item using the ampersand period notation. So the AL1, AL2, AL3, they're application items, and they've got some computations that set that number. So I thought, well, maybe, and it still didn't dawn on me how it made it into a badge. And I thought maybe there was something complicated they did, but it must be something built in, because I discovered even in my own application, if I go to my navigation menu and edit one of these items, I can add the square brackets after my label, and inside the square brackets, I could type a number in there, or I could use the ampersand period notation to reference an application item. And so here I see that it created this badge for me. 114 is my application ID. That's why I referenced with my ampersand period notation. I couldn't find anywhere where this was documented, so just a note that this may be included now, but it's not guaranteed to be included in future releases. So something to just keep on your list of things to check in future upgrades if you decide to use this kind of feature. Okay, let's discuss page groups now. Page groups help you organize pages within your application. Suppose you have a large application and you've got a group of pages that kind of relate to certain functionality or modules of your application. There's a utility. From the application utilities page, over on the right side here, we have page groups. And here's where we can create some page groups to be anything you want it to be. I'm going to just call it feedback. And then using the page assignments page here, we can select the pages we want to apply to our chosen page group. So now I've signed all these pages to feedback. So now when I'm in my application builder, looking at my pages, maybe I only want to sort it according to a certain group that I'm working on at the time. And now the next thing that I want to point out, a nice little feature that's included, is when we export the application. Say you made a bunch of changes or deletions in your application, and after a few minutes you discovered, hey, I didn't mean to delete that. How am I going to get it back? Well, you can do that by using this as of feature of the application export. And what this does is allow you to sort of go back in time and get the way your application was defined as of as many minutes ago as you define. Now this does have a set limit depending on some database parameters and sizes. But if you catch it fast enough, you're able to go back and recover any accidental deletions you may have made. From the application utilities page, we can get a list of database object dependencies of our application. So this database object dependencies, by clicking the compute dependencies, we get back a report that identifies the database objects referenced by this application. This can be useful in knowing what database objects we may need to be included when we move this application, so we have the necessary objects wherever we move it to, whether it's a different server or a different workspace. In the APEX development environment is a search feature called Spotlight Search. It's a quick way to search for different things in our APEX development environment, and it's context aware, meaning that the results will be relative to where we are in the APEX Builder environment. We can click to it by clicking the magnifying glass up in the navigation bar. There is also a shortcut key, which is Control single quote, to open the search. And as you type, it'll present you with its best guesses, I guess, of what you're looking for. So suppose you listen to this and you remember, oh yeah, there's a setting in globalization, but where are those globalization attributes? I can search and start typing globalization. I see, okay, there's some globalization attributes in share component. I can click this search result and it's going to take me right to those globalization attributes I'm looking for. Or suppose there's something you're looking for in your application, you want to see it everywhere in your application where you reference a certain column or some kind of code. Say I'm looking everywhere I reference sysdate, I can type sysdate in there, and that gives me these different options. I can search the page I can search my page for my text I entered. I can search my whole app, my whole application, or the whole workspace. And if you notice, over here it gives us some hints of some keyboard shortcuts. So I don't have to pick up my mouse if I didn't want to. I could type in the value and then hit the shortcut to perform a search. And then speaking about shortcuts, the application builder has some shortcuts. We can get to it by hitting Alt-Shift-F1 or coming up here in the help drop down and selecting shortcuts. The shortcuts are useful in quickly getting to different features in the application builder. To be honest, I probably haven't learned as many as I should. The one I really like to use though is the save and run page. So if I make a change to an item, instead of going up and clicking save and running my page, I can just hit Alt F8. It's going to save and then run the page for me. Okay. And that's it for my presentation. One little slide, a quick shout out to Kscope 20. Kscope to me is one of the best value added APEX related content conferences out there, and you can use the code INS20 to get a discount if you're going to register and attend Kscope 20. And now I'm open to any questions.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for that presentation. And yeah, it is the code is INS20, and that's for a $100 discount off your registration if you're attending Kscope. So $100 off. Just use that code, and you'll get it. So we have quite a few questions. I'm glad to say. So okay, start with the first one here. Oh, by the way, what version of Apex are you using, Jeff?
For the demo here, it's Apex 18.1 or 2.
Okay.
We'll find out in a second here.
So we got a couple, at least one person who's guessed just about right.
18.2.
18.2, right on. Okay, great. Okay, so first question is concerning the reinstall and update of the app. Am I getting all the? Oh, sorry. Okay. First question: how to preserve access control role assignments after reinstall update of the app? Based on my experience, full app update will wipe out all role assignments. And talking about APEX 19.1, he just wants to see if he has to if he will run into the same problem, and mentions that it's a great feature, but if you cannot copy the assignments with the app, it's kind of useless, and should be used with caution.
That's a good thing to bring up. I've actually never attempted to do that. I assume he's talking the package applications when they're being updated.
I would
that
assume.
It's not bringing those roles across. That's a good note to make note of. I haven't come across that because I've never tried it, you know.
Okay. All right.
So off the top of my head, I don't know how to address that.
Okay. So let's just move on to the next question. What version did Apex Footer become available?
I don't know. I don't know which version it became available in.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and research that. I can research it and go find out.
Okay, and we can submit the answer to everyone in the group here for sure.
Okay.
After the webinar, because we will be having a follow-up email to everyone who's attending now, and we'll send you a link to the video as well as any additional notes that we need to. Okay, next question is, what's your opinion on the default 18.1 appearance of items? I noticed in the color picker you added the item label and it was over the text and it doesn't look great.
Yeah, it's a struggle I have sometimes when adding some of these page items in the newer versions.
Okay. And
it's just something you have to deal with. Yeah, sometimes I run across them.
Right.
And then I just have to deal with them different ways.
Okay. And next question is, can you add value to percent graph item to show plus center label?
That's a good question. So you want to see the value of our graph. Let me run that page. So our percent graph here, I've got a value here. We don't see what the value is. Now, for some reason, I wasn't able to look into it far enough. There is a, let me get to my percent graph. There is a setting that says show value, yes and no. To me, that says it should show the value or not. By default, it's currently not working. I tried messing with some of the background colors and foregrounds, and I never got to work in time to be able to give you an answer on how to make that work right now. And so I don't know if it's this version of Apex, just a bug with it, or something else. But I did run across that because I wanted to show the same thing, but then I noticed, oh, it's not working for some reason. I say show it, but it's not showing it. So good question. Maybe I'll be able to do a little more research and find an answer to that.
Yeah, we can include that in our email back to everyone. Okay, the next question involves a feature that I kind of liked here. It's quick picks. Can they be dynamic?
Not declaratively, is all I'm going to say. I'm sure there's a way we could do something to like do it in the background somehow, but declaratively, there wasn't a feature to make them dynamic. It was a set, you had the set list of 10 labels and values.
Okay.
So declaratively, no. Using some, probably some JavaScript, we could be able to change those and make them dynamic.
Okay, the next question is about the section, when you were talking about sorting. And could you run by that section one more time when you were doing the character value comparison? And what was that final setting you were working on?
Okay, it's an application level setting in globalization. Oops, let me get to it this way. That's the character value comparison setting. And then to make it so it's case insensitive, you'd set it to binary underscore CI for case insensitive sorting. So if we look at the help here, we see, hey, this determines the collating sequence for character value comparison and various SQL operations. And it's used to alter the NLS sort database session parameter if no value specify the default values derived from the database session at runtime. It gives some examples here, binary, German, Canadian. And then I found that if you use binary underscore CI, that sets it to sort, to do the case insensitive sort.
Great. Okay, next question. Can defined page groups be utilized in the authorization scheme at all?
I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to look into that. I would guess there might be a way, but I wouldn't know it off the top of my head.
Okay, so we'll leave that for later. Okay, next question is how difficult would it be to add Spotlight Search to an application we create? Can we get the code for it?
You know what? It seems like I came across a blog post the other day where someone had added Spotlight Search to their application. I'd have to look for it.
It was an Apex?
I think so. But maybe they were just talking about the Spotlight Search.
Okay, well.
It looks like there's a plugin named APEX Plugin Spotlight, and maybe that would do what you're asking.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a plugin out there, it looks like. And I think this might be able to let you add that kind of functionality to your own application. Yep. Looks like that's what this plugin might be.
Great. Okay, I'm going to continue here because we've got a few more. Okay, so globe page, how to identify globe variable that I can update through any page?
Globe what?
The question is globe page, how to identify globe variable that I can update through any page. Please review, yeah.
I guess I'm not quite understanding the question.
Okay, well,
unless it's saying how do you work with global variables. When you want like a global variable type of thing, you'll use your application items to set and retrieve item values that you want to use through your whole application.
okay, he has a follow-up question that he's also asked. It's also, what's the difference between define item on the globe page and application item? I've just run my Apex in the Oracle Cloud. And percent graph is not showing the value. Maybe it's 19.2, it's fixed, I don't know. Oh, right. Shoot, sorry. I'm asking the wrong question here. Let me back up. Let me start that question over. Okay. Also, what's the difference between define item on the globe page and application item?
That could be application items in your shared components, and I guess he's also referencing to where you can create some page items on your global page, your page 0.
Okay. Okay, sorry, he's added to how to identify a global item or variable that I can access or show on any page. Is that a bit more?
How to identify them? They're like the app item, like the app ID one's a built-in one. Other ones are going to be your just the ones you defined in your shared components application items.
Okay.
Are usually where you want. Like in this sample application, it had the AO1, AO2, AO3. That's referencing on all the pages.
Okay. All right. On to the next question is, please review how to use that feature about dimming the page on a submit.
Dimming a page on submit. So whatever action you use, whatever you do to submit your page, you'll want to change that to a dynamic action. And just like I had here. Instead of having this button here, let me load the page. I'm gone. Instead of this page action being submit page, I have it defined by the dynamic action. And inside the dynamic action that I have defined, there's just this true action, the submit page, with this feature show processing set to yes. With this show processing set to yes, that's what's causing the page to be grayed out and the processing animation to show.
Okay, so it goes along with the graphic of the turning wheel.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Next question is, this might be beyond scope, but one of the developers here asked about the application access control that is under shared components, and if this can be used when you are using external authorization, such as Melon for SAML or ADFS.
Repeat the first part of the question.
Yeah, one of the developers asked about the application access control that is under shared components, and if this can be used when you are using external authorization.
That I don't know off the top of my head. I would assume it can, but I'm not positive.
All right.
Somehow you'd have to, well, I'm not sure. You might have to go and do your own thing. You might not be able to use this built-in part when you're not going to be using the built-in authorization. I mean authentication.
Okay. At this point, it's 3 o'clock, so the webinar was set for an hour. We're going to continue. So if you want to continue on with us, we're happy to answer all the questions. If you want to drop off, we totally understand. So I'm going to ask the next question. And the next question is regarding the text subtype. Does that effectively apply a format mask? Is the user required to enter the dashes in the phone number subtype?
No, it does not add the format mask for you. So it's still like a normal text field. So even though I said phone number, there's still nothing declaratively set for us at that point to say it's going to add the dashes for us or require, it's not going to add any validation requiring the user to enter the dashes for a phone number. All that would have to be done separately.
All right. Next question, is there a way of showing numbers and dates depending on the user region settings in the browser?
That I do not know. That's something I'd have to look up. I would assume there's probably a way, maybe not declaratively, but there's probably a way.
All right.
It might be difficult though, off the top of my head.
And the next question that I have is one I mashed in with another one earlier on. I've just run my APEX in the Oracle Cloud 19.100015 and %graph is not showing the value. Maybe it's in 19.2 it's fixed, I don't know.
Okay. Looks like that might be something we need to report or figure out how to actually use.
Okay. All right. Next question is the faceted search in 19.2 looks promising, but I haven't tried it yet. Actually, that was a statement more than a question, but.
Okay.
All right.
Agreed.
Comment, you guys are great, very enjoyable webinar, thumbs up.
Thank you. I'll take that.
Yep. Okay, we got comments coming in. This is kind of what we thought and locally confirms that what I was thinking. And someone else adds, I think the email subtype checks for an @ but don't quote me on it. Okay, next question is there an easy way to apply a phone number mask without a plugin?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'm gonna do this subtype. I'm gonna just try the email one real fast. See, I still think I can type anything in here. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. It's read only. Let me take off the read only. Yeah, it doesn't provide any validation. I've got that set at now in a different browser it may, so it might be browser specific. So like maybe the browser on your mobile device, maybe it's going to see that and then apply some validations for you. That could be possible, I guess. I don't know if it is or not, but it wouldn't surprise me if it is possible.
All right. Okay, I think that, well, we've answered pretty well much all the questions, and we're going to close the session now because we're now 5 minutes past the hour. So thank you very much, Jeff, for that webinar. And
You're welcome. Thank you.
I enjoyed it a lot as well. So I want to thank everyone for attending, and I'd like to cordially invite you all also to our next webinar, which is Demystifying Edition-Based Redefinition. It's going to be presented by INSOM Director of Consulting Services, Richard Soul, and the webinar will be held not next week, Wednesday, December 4th at 2 p.m. And you can check out our full webinar calendar online at insom.ca under Resources Webinars. So please go there and see. And that concludes our presentation for today. And as I said, a recording of this session will be made available and the link will be sent to you, as well as any questions that we can answer concerning the ones that we weren't, that we didn't have a full answer for you there. So on behalf of everyone here at INSOM, thank you for your time and we hope to see you soon. Goodbye.